Hi, so this video is not about nutrition, but it is about health. It's a question that just keeps coming to me, and I feel like you can't even open your computer anymore without hearing the word Ozempic, or go to the supermarket and you see all the magazines still where they're talking about celebrities taking it. So I'm not a medical doctor, and this isn't a medical discussion. I wanted to have a conversation about this more from a holistic standpoint of how does someone make decisions around medical choices, especially pharmaceutical drugs that could have a really big impact, but also has some side effects. And when the world is so loud and there's so much noise around something like this, and it's become so polarizing, it's really, really difficult not to internalize that and make a solid decision for yourself. So if you just want to have an explorative discussion about this and take into consideration some things that I would think about before starting a therapy like this, then hang out with me. I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should take this because, again, it's not medical advice, and also, regardless of who I am, you should be making this decision for yourself. But I hope maybe this will give you a little bit of thought work to be able to make a better decision for yourself, and something that's grounded in love and light and coming from what you feel like is the best decision for you right now, and also the you in 10 or 15 years, because that person also matters. So these types of drugs are, they're hormone mimicking. So let's start there. Like, if you're considering taking any pharmaceutical drug, what you have to know is that there's going to be what they're selling you on the drug, and then there are also going to be all of these side effects that come with the drugs. And that's also marketing. So somebody could argue that if a percentage of time is below a certain threshold, then it can be a side effect rather than an effect. But that's not really necessarily the case, because there's a lot of drugs out there where it's like 99% of the time people get dizzy. Okay, so you could sell it as a dizzy medication if you wanted to. And there's also really cool things that happen, like with the shingles vaccine right now. I think they're looking at using that for dementia patients. And wouldn't that be amazing? But it could be that the shingles vaccine has a side effect of reducing dementia. Okay, well, what percentage of the time does that happen, right? Like, all a marketing spin of intended effect for this specific application, for this specific person, why it's being prescribed, versus all the other things that also happen with this medication. And they all have them, right? And sometimes even the intended effect doesn't happen. Things don't work for everyone. I'm never going to forget when I had to get my wisdom teeth pulled out. It took a really long time for me to be able to get on the books because I lived in a small town. And so the dentist prescribed me pain medication. It didn't do anything. Oh, I mean, it did something. It made me act like a looky-loo, and I was running around saying all kinds of crazy things because I was so, drugged up. I was probably taking way too many of them. But the thing that it didn't do is it didn't kill the pain. I was still in just astronomical amounts of pain, and I couldn't sleep. It was absolutely terrible. The point is that it's a painkiller, but it's killing the pain all over the place. It's dulling the pain, but the type of pain that I had, it just wasn't working for that. So digressing, but also emphasizing the fact that when you're being marketed something, think for yourself, not what could happen in addition to that, but think about the fact that these drugs could have multiple things and do have multiple things that are going to happen to you when you take them. And that's really, really important, especially in this case, because these drugs are something that ultimately you're probably going to have to take long term if you decide to take them. I also have hypothyroidism. And with that, it's really challenging because I'm going to be on a medication for the rest of my life. And I've worked with tons of holistic practitioners. I've written blogs about it. Like, sure, there could be a way to get off this medication, but more than likely, and probably the safest thing for me long term, is to be on this medication for the rest of my life. I'm going to tell you that that's a little bit challenging for me, because while we don't need to go into the crazy trauma of like zombie apocalypse nature, but we could go there. If there's a shortage on my medication, or if I don't have access to it for some reason, my health is going to suffer. And that's something that honestly does give me and a lot of other people anxiety, thinking about people with diabetes and other conditions where you have to be on this medication forever. So thinking about just making decisions on pharmaceuticals is really understanding that short and long-term implications of taking this. So if you're someone who's in the population that has a ton of weight to lose, you do have different options besides taking this drug to try to lose the weight, because having this huge heavy burden isn't just about all of the physical side effects, but it also has emotional and mental and spiritual effects as well, which we can talk about that. But I've known people who have gotten like the bariatric surgery, right, doing the stomach stapling or the lap band. I've known people who have had traumatic events and then have totally rewired their lifestyles. I've had people who have had a death in the family and then lost weight and then change their lifestyle, right? So there can be emotional things that cause your body to lose weight. There can be physical surgical interventions, and there can also be lifestyle. There's also hormone management and an infinite number of other things and reasons as to why you're holding on to this weight. Something that I've seen universally across everyone that I've known that's held on to really large amounts of weight or would be considered obese is oftentimes they take on more than their share in the world. And this weight kind of becomes either an armor or a security blanket for them. There's usually a lot of emotional components to this, and it's not something that necessarily happened overnight. Sure, there's situations where it's like, oh, I was always heavy, but when heavy becomes a burden, it's different, right? And it hits differently. So the idea of having something that miraculously could help make this go away quickly is incredibly tempting. So why would I consider this drug? Why wouldn't I consider this drug compared to doing a surgery or looking at other hormone treatments or doing diet and exercise? Well, let's start from the basics. It's a really good idea to take inventory of who you are and your life and the different stressors in your life and how you feel. Just like I just talked about the emotional implications of carrying a lot of extra weight. Also the physical implications. Is it hard to go up and down the stairs? Is it hard to sleep at night, right? Are your joints aching? Do you have other medical conditions that are happening? So all of that is creating burden on you. If you take inventory of all of these things, you can then look at the different solutions that you have available to see what might be accessible to you. So these drugs that have come out are very, very expensive unless insurance covers them. Now, if you're in this demographic, it could be that insurance is going to cover that for you. But again, this could be a lifelong medication. And so if that's the case, are you always going to be able to afford it? Consideration number one. Is that going to create a larger financial stress for you than you're willing to take on? Consideration number two is taking that medication and the side effects of what's going to happen when you start taking that medication. So in a lot of these trials, like we just talked about with side effects, some of those things can be nausea and indigestion and diarrhea, maybe short term, maybe long term, but also there can be more severe things that happen in a very small percentage of the population, but the risk is still there. So we need to not minimize it, of things with the gallbladder and the pancreas, could impact the heart. So there's not that long-term data to know and understand where this is going to go and what's going to happen. So we're going to have that question mark of what am I going to look like and how am I going to feel in 10 or 15 years if I decide to take this medication or not. That's a big decision when you have some unknowns. if you're in a situation where you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're working from sunup until sundown and you're going to be nauseous all day for months, is that really going to be something that you can sustain and do right now? How are you going to manage that? Will you have a mitigation plan in place to be able to deal with some of the physical side effects of taking the drug? So secondly, I know, the idea is that you're taking this in order to get a boost or a jump start so that your body can start metabolizing things in a different way to be able to help you lose that weight, but then also that you are going to start to change your lifestyle in the event that lifestyle was part of the reason why you had a lot of weight. So eating right and exercising well, getting good sleep, proper nutrition, managing stress. Do you have plans in place to be able to create balance in your lifestyle in addition to taking this drug? Because it's not one of those things where you can eat a hamburger and then eat a salad right afterwards and the salad mitigates the hamburger. That doesn't work like that, and neither does this. So it's not like you can take this drug and then continue to maintain a lifestyle that is not healthy and have long-lasting effects without compounding your health issues. So think about what your health issues currently are and how you're going to use this as one tool in addition to all of the other lifestyle changes that you're taking place. And again, if you're working around the clock or you're somebody that has a lot of other responsibilities in your life, you have a family, whatever it is, this has to fit into that somehow, and you have to be able to have the time and space to be able to prioritize yourself, not only managing this new drug and having these conversations with your doctor, but also being able to think about how you're going to shift and rebuild your life. Which brings me to support. So whoever is around you, maybe they say, oh good, yeah, go take the drug, lose weight, you're going to be fantastic. Are they someone who is also going to support you in maintaining a healthy lifestyle? And if they share a home with you or a kitchen with you, are they going to help support you with building a healthier life and making those changes? Because it's really, really challenging and difficult if you were one of 5 people in a family and everyone else wants to continue living the lifestyle the way that they always have, and you're trying to change. That's going to create a lot of strain within your household, and that's going to cause a lot of stress for you. So having that buy-in and support, have a discussion with your friends and family about wanting to make these changes for yourself and being able to start to take that into consideration while you're starting to get the initial support from a drug like this. So the next thing to take into consideration is, again, you're probably going to be on this for a long time. I think a lot of the times doctors are putting people on this for like a year and then trying to taper them off and see if like the regimented lifestyle is enough to keep all of the health implications, so not just the weight loss, but also all of the other health markers that may have improved, have that in place and see if they can get it stabilized. If it doesn't stabilize, then the option usually is to go back on the drug. So being able to think about what is that going to look like for you. So not just having a 3-month plan or a 6-month plan, but you need to be a long-term planner here to think about what are my next 24 months going to look like. These drugs, while they can have really huge benefits to your health and can help to, as a byproduct of losing this weight, also help with like your cholesterol and your blood pressure, your sleep, all of these things. They also have the impact, because you're rapidly losing weight like that, that can be considered a stress to the body. In addition to that, you know, the body is indiscriminate. It's not going to say, I'm going to go find those fat cells and get rid of them, and it's only going to be the really harmful fat, and we're just going to tackle all of that and it's going to be gone and we're going to flush it out of your system. It's going to be great. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to be losing weight, not just from fat, but also from muscle, right? Other bodily tissues are going to be lost in this process. And depending on your age, that muscle loss and potentially bone loss or weakening could happen and could be really, really difficult to manage. So think about that as well in terms of the lifestyle. So not just eating healthy and working out, but having a structured plan for specifically focusing on your protein and on strength training. And you may potentially need to either add in supplementation or other dietary changes to help maintain your bone mass as well, or to improve that. So knowing that as your body's making these massive radical shifts, it's going to need support in some other areas. And sometimes when we're getting relief in one area, we can start to neglect and ignore another area. So to me, the idea of taking on this type of tool to be able to support your weight loss requires a lot of planning and diligence, and it requires someone who is really wanting to get invested and involved in their overall health. So it's not just wanting to lose the weight, but it's wanting to really focus on optimizing your health overall and creating a lifestyle that is going to help you be supported in not just the initial weight loss, but also long-term having a healthier body that can sustain its new weight, and to be able to have a little bit more compassion and interaction with your body on a regular basis, so that you can make sure that you know and understand what your body needs at any given time, which can be really, really difficult when you have a lot of weight to lose. That noise, it's like noise and static. Just like we have noise and static from the world about what's good and what's bad and what we should and shouldn't do, we can also have noise and static from our body that's not letting us see what's really happening underneath just having a lot of weight, or having, these other kind of surface level, not surface level in the sense that they're not important and really severe, but because they're so visible or they're so severe or easy to identify in lab tests, right? A simple blood test can tell you if you have high cholesterol. So because of that, they're the things that get addressed and tackled first, but then sometimes the underlying root cause is ignored. Well, when that weight goes away, and when you're in this new state, those things are going to start to come out. So it could be that you have some other underlying things that you need to address. Wow, so where are we with this decision of taking this drug? We've considered our baseline of what our life is looking like today and the areas of our life of where we have stress. We're considered a good candidate for this, and we're having discussions with our doctor about what that looks like for our bio-individuality and what it looks like in terms of our specific biological makeup, our health, our risk factors. We're taking a look at our short and long-term health plan from a lifestyle component, from a social component, and from a health and, again, financial cost component of whether or not this tool is something that's going to need to be in place long-term, or if it's going to be something that's in place short-term. We're going to be looking at our diet and our exercise program and how that's going to fit into our life. We're understanding that this is going to be phasic and that we're going to be kind of going through a wave, not just physically, going through maybe some potential side effects, some unknowns, but also how the world is responding to us. That's the next layer that we can get to, is thinking about the fact that besides the physical things that we've talked about, if there was an underlying issue of trauma, or if there was disordered or, difficult times eating, or a difficult relationship with food, if there was a difficult relationship with your body or some other type of addiction that was happening, if there was any type of physical abuse in your past, or if there was any type of social abuse that was happening in terms of connecting your value to your physical appearance, all of this is also going to be happening and coming out, and your body's going to be processing it really, really quickly. Maybe it won't be processing it really quickly, but it's going to become aware of it. The noise could get louder. Now, some people have reported that when they're taking these drugs, the noise of their body image issues gets quieter. Well, that's great. It could be balancing out some hormones in you. And there is some hormones that can actually make you kind of talk like crap to yourself. It's true. That can happen. But also when there's these deeper issues that are happening psychologically or within your nervous system that your body's been holding on to, when you have a rapid change like that, these things can also sometimes overwhelm and overflow. And that's so they're also seeing the opposite of this sometimes, that sometimes depression might increase, anxiety, right? Your whole identity has been built partially around being a larger bodied person. And so with that, all of what that means for you is now shattered. It's gone, and it can be gone really quickly, right? There's people who are losing 20% of their body weight in a few months. That's massive. And so when you see that, if you look in the mirror, what do you do if you don't recognize yourself anymore? What do you do when you sit in your favorite chair and it doesn't feel the same anymore? What do you do when the way that you move your body in time and space changes and is different? You could have a party and you could celebrate and you could feel amazing. But there also is this foreignness because, like I mentioned in the beginning, oftentimes this weight can be armor, or it can be a type of protection and comfort for us. A friend that has been keeping us safe, and even though it's also been causing us harm, right? It's something that has become so familiar that the loss of that can require a mourning. It can be a tragedy almost. At the very least, it's going to be noticeable. And I think that this is something that is often minimized. And we really need to think about the fact that if this is part of our identity and our identity is shifting, how do we help ourselves in a healthy way shift into this new identity and determine what that's going to look like? And that's why having the stack of all the other things that I just mentioned in place is so critical. You know, who do you want to be at the end of this? Who are you letting go of? And who are you stepping into as you move just from someone who has held on to this weight for maybe years and years, or maybe just months and months, but whatever it is, you've held on to this weight and now you've let it go. You've been given the opportunity to let it go. Who do you want to be? That's a question. And I think that you should really deeply kind of consider that, because if you don't want to be someone who is going to be a little bit more heavily involved in the medical system, because now you're taking a drug that potentially you're going to have to take for the rest of your life, to have a lot of things happen very rapidly in terms of metabolic changes, and be responsible for new aspects and getting the education that you need in order to get that healthy lifestyle, that's a different person, right? And we could have our 9-to-5 job or our 5 to midnight job, whatever it is. We could have our 3 kids and our husband or our wife or our partner and all the other responsibilities of life. Those haven't gone away. So all of that is still in place. What I'm saying is it could be an entire life evaluation, that it's not just your weight and it's not just taking a drug. There's so many things that are happening around this. And could I be overcomplicating it? I think a lot of people would say, hey, you just try it and see if it works for you. Or, weight is the most important thing and the benefits outweigh the risks. Well, I don't know. I don't know if they do for every single person. And that's why you need to do you. You need to stop and think about you. And I don't think it's overcomplicating it. I think that it's stepping back and being aware of yourself and all the different components of yourself, rather than just being aware of the ones that people are so focused on and the ones that people are marketing to. I said I'm not against pharmaceuticals. And, on a fundamental level, I believe that science is such a beautiful thing, and we've been able to do so many miraculous things. That being said, we always do know that we have to follow the money. And there is money behind this. And there's a lot of people in a lot of other countries that don't necessarily have the weight problems that we do here in the US. And so there's other things that are happening. And so quick drug fixes are not always bad, but they're not the only way. So you could be asking yourself at this point, if you're still listening to me talk, well, okay, if I'm not going to use this drug, like what are my other options, right? If I want to have this miracle, if I want to have this really big change, what can I do? So I've known people who have undergone surgery, and we could have a whole conversation about the pros and cons of that and whether or not it's right for you. What I know with all of those people is that those lifestyle changes were required, otherwise it didn't work. And they weren't any happier afterwards. And they had long-term consequences of what that meant for them. For some people, they did the lifestyle changes, they stepped into their new identity and they feel fantastic, and it's been the greatest decision that they've ever made. And they've had long-lasting, amazing results. For other people, that's not the case. And so it's very, very individual. And I think we're going to see the same things with these new weight loss drugs, right? Is that it's going to be very individual. But so these are discussions that you could have with your doctor. And it could be that you want to step in and look at somebody who maybe is an integrated medicine doctor, or someone who's looking at you a little bit more holistically to talk about, hey, have I really given diet and lifestyle like the full college try, if you will? That's an outdated expression. But I know that I've met a lot of people that are like, oh, I've tried that diet. It didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work. But they didn't really try the diet. They didn't really stick to the entire plan for the right length of time and monitor their symptoms through the entire time and tweak and modify appropriately in order to make sure that they were yielding the results that they were looking for, that they really had holistically tried it. Oftentimes that's not the case. It's very easy to kid ourselves in terms of what we're doing with diet. Same thing with exercise. And so if a diet or exercise isn't working for you, the stress component and the other lifestyle components, the emotional components of what you have going on in your life are other things that can definitely be looked at. I know people who have lost weight just with hypnosis. No drugs required, and they've been able to do that. Not my firsthand experience, but I have worked with other people directly that have been able to release trauma and release kind of ancestral patterns that have been going on with them, and release responsibilities that didn't really belong to them. That weight of the world they've been able to shift off, and it's created this space for them to be able to let go of the weight. The other thing I'll say is that, before you would start any drug, getting that metabolic panel and working with your doctor to be able to understand if there's any other hormonal issues or any other underlying medical conditions that could be addressed first, that's definitely a way to go. I've also met a couple of people who have said that they've started this drug and they don't know if they have a thyroid issue. They don't know if they have, the potential for early menopause. These other hormones that are running their body, their doctors didn't even look at that before starting them. So even though I'm not a doctor, what I'll say is I don't think that's the best care. I think that your doctor should be looking at you holistically and giving you a full 360 picture of advice, not trying to maybe push a drug that could they be getting a kickback for? Maybe. Or could it be easier for them because looking at all of those other things would require more time and resources? Most doctors are here to help you. Sometimes that's not the case. So pushing to try to find, if you're going to do this anyways, if you're going to invest in this, the time, the money, the expense, all of the changes, the emotional roller coaster. If you're going to do all of this anyways, you might as well do your diligence in the beginning and work with some people that are going to look at you as a whole and complete person. Check all the box. And if the map that you look at the end says, hey, I think that the benefits outweigh the risks for me adding this tool into my life, then go ahead and do it. That's what I hope for everyone, is that anytime we're going to make a decision like this, that we quiet the noise of the marketing and the hype. We quiet the noise of this overnight success and trying to cut corners. And we really just take a look at what's happening with us and who we are as a person, and try to make the best decision that we possibly can for us at the time, so that that way in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, if you have something happen around this choice, if it's good, great. If it's not so good, if something not so good happens because you made this choice, you can still say to yourself, I did the very best that I could with the information that I had. And I came at this from a really grounded, centered place. And so I'm going to be okay with the consequences that are here, because I know that I was informed, and I know I wasn't doing this to please anyone else or to escape from something else that I really should have been working on in that time. So that's my hope for you, is that you can be paying future you forward and really, really getting informed. So no quick 5-second videos, no kind of supermodel checklist or anything like that. No saying I'll figure it out as I go along, but really taking some time with yourself to see if this is the right decision for you. So that's what I hope for Ozempic and all of the other drugs that are out there, is that we can have longer conversations that maybe sometimes are hard to track. I didn't bring my whiteboard, right? But is something that we really should be stepping back and taking into consideration, so that that way we can really, really feel good and confident with what we're doing and feel as in control of our health as we possibly can as we move through things. So that's all I have on this. I wish you luck on your health journey, and I will see you maybe in a future video.